Vegas, baby, Vegas.
Yeah, Diva Las Vegas.
Good man. So you were just on a trip recently that I want to ask you all about because it sounds really really cool. So
I just need to
you
pause one
recently went to
second.
Vegas.
Well, normally when we start this live, I see both of us. There's like a streaming that comes back to me, but I'm not right now, so I'm just wondering if all the technical bits are working. Oh, that. Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. Is that? Yeah, that's what I'm
That
supposed to
was
see, right?
what's known as a user generated error.
Uh, Me?
No, me.
Oh, okay. I'm
Thank you for catching that.
okay. Cool. Now we got the fancy, dad talks branding here and spacey look.
Now we
There we go.
fancy.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Here we go. This is
So you were just in
live.
Vegas with your brother and your dad. So I want to ask you all about that. So
Yeah.
what prompted this trip?
Um, what prompted this trip? So we did it when he turned 70, and I don't remember the exact context. It was more about like giving him an experience, and when you get to 70, when you get to 80, like I don't know, it's hard to buy something for the guy. Like he's pretty modest in his needs and his wants, and that age you're buying yourself what you need, usually. So, and I don't think he wants us more stuff. So, anyways, we thought about at 70, let's get the guy an experience. And he likes Vegas. I mean, he likes gambling. It's not like he does it a ton. He sets himself a limit and he says, "Look, I'm just going to have this much fun." He doesn't drink, but he just likes. I don't even know exactly what it is about the gambling. So, anyways, at 80, we toyed around with a few ideas like going to Japan. Um, he didn't want to do that. But when we prompted him with Vegas, there was a different level of excitement.
Hmm.
When we brought it up, so we went with that.
Where did you go for 70? What did you guys do for that?
Vegas.
Oh, also Vegas.
Yeah. And now we're hoping, well, let's do it when he's 90. We'll create a tradition that he can look forward to. So
There you
if
go.
it helps, yeah, keep him around. So yeah.
And let me ask you, so what was, so you went with your brother and do you and your brother, you guys have a really tight relationship?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I guess we're talking about dads. He's a dad. I'm a dad.
Yeah.
We're taking our dad there. But yeah, we have a good. I don't know, like we get along and we can help each other out with stuff in life and ask each other for advice. And so I'd say we have a pretty good relationship
Have you guys always been like that?
as long as I can remember. Like, I'd say we've gotten probably even closer with now having kids.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, growing up, like he's 2 years younger. I'm sure there was phases we were a little bit competitive. Um, but I have good memories of us since we were little.
Right. Cool. And what were things like growing up like between you and your brother and your dad?
Good question. I don't have a lot of memories of the three of us.
Mm-hmm.
Like well, maybe some like in the backyard shooting hoops. Like my parents had built a basketball net there. Like we shooting hoops. Um, I mean, I know we were both quite sporty, but yeah, I don't have any bad memories, but I don't have any that really stick out either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so when you guys decided to go to Vegas, let's say like this time versus last time you guys. So if you guys went 10 years ago, and let's say I know over the last 10 years, well, 10 years plus, I guess you've gone through, I would say like a big metamorphosis in your own being, your own identity. Like as now as a dad, like you were a dad back then too, but now you're a dad that is helping to lead dads, and you've gone through a lot of growth and evolution within yourself. And so I'm curious like how that like that time with your father, like how that's evolved.
Um, yeah, I wonder. Um, well, Vegas is different to me now. That's one thing. It's just it it's I don't know. It was harder to be there. Like it's so loud and it's so like it's just everything is big. Everything is quite sensational. I mean, it's um yeah, like they still smoke in the casinos, and
Really?
I
Oh, I
don't
didn't
really
know
drink. I know, so and I don't really drink anymore. So I'm kind of it's me, yes. Like it's not the same trip. I'm into different things now, but it was for my dad, so it's entertaining, but it doesn't have the same appeal to me, I guess, as it might have a while back. But anyways, in terms of how I showed up, I don't know, maybe a lot better being present, just being with my brother, being with my dad, being better at listening, hearing some of his stories, asking some questions, figuring out, maybe a little bit more about myself, just, seeing it reflected in him. Um, I don't, yeah, now that, I mean, I don't, can't put my finger on anything profound in terms of how the 10 years have been different, but, yeah, it'd be interesting. I don't have any footage of, we tried to find it. We didn't even take a picture of the three of us 10 years ago.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, but so we did a much better job of documenting this trip as well. But
Hmm.
yeah, I guess they'd maybe, feel it's hard to know, right? Like, yeah, it would be probably good to get someone's external reflection, but it's hard to put a finger on myself.
Right. And did you have, I mean, did you have an intention going into this trip?
Yeah, like just bucket list kind of for him. And I realized that I think I'm pretty good at this with my kids and maybe with my dad here is when we proposed this idea and we said, hey, there's like the Eagles are playing down there in this thing, the sphere, right? This giant technological marvel. And when we mentioned that, he started coming back to us and said, oh, there's a date that I see there's tickets available in like October, and I might already be going down there with some other guys. And he's a pretty humble guy, and so he doesn't get too excited about much. But the fact that he was looking up dates for this concert and sending it to us, and I was like, oh, okay, there's something here. We
Right,
gotta go
right.
with this. So I feel like that's something. It's important for, well, it doesn't matter who it is. But I do this a lot with my kids too, right? With different activities and stuff about really trying to figure out trying to notice without me being overbearing and putting on them. Like, what are they passionate about, and being able to follow that lead and support that. So here I saw my dad get really excited about the idea of this concert and us going to Vegas, which he didn't do when we brought up the idea of Japan. So I was like, okay,
Hmm.
there's something here. We gotta go with this.
Yeah, yeah. There's something. It's funny you mentioned that. We went through an experience like going back to dad being dad stuff. With my oldest daughter, she she's not that she's having challenges with reading, but she's a little bit behind the rest of her class when it comes to reading, and I I vacillate between this like I want to push her a little bit more because I know that like if she's gonna learn anything in school, it should be reading. Like that's the thing. That's the gateway to the
Mm.
rest of the world. That will get her the world. And so, but we're not pushing it because like she'll just come to it. Like I've never met an adult who has an upbringing like I have, that or like my daughter has that is illiterate. So I'm like no, she'll get there. And then they had a book fair at their school a couple weeks ago, and she really wanted to buy these books. She really wanted to have some money to buy these books, and I remember thinking like, yeah, like whatever. Like I know she's gonna buy these books. She's gonna read them a few times, and they're probably not even at her level at this point. Like they're actually a little below her level, but she just really wanted to get them. And I remember thinking like, yeah, like she's just really excited about it. If she's really excited about it, like we're just gonna pour into it, and like whatever, it's gonna be $20. It's like no big deal, and even if it feels like kind of wasteful spending because we can get those same books at the library. But it's like, you know what? No, she wants to do it. She's excited about it. Like, let's just go with that. And definitely has paid dividends, because all of a sudden, like, she feels a lot of pride with these books. And I think it's an amazing thing to just really go with what they show passion for. And I think us as dads, that's a great key that you bring up, that just be aware, like, just, we don't have to impose our things on them, and to always kind of be prodding them and poking them with, like, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? Like, just whatever emerges naturally, like, just go with it. And you never know what that'll bring.
Yeah. Right. And sometimes it doesn't make sense, right? It's like, really? Like, how are you so excited about this? But, some part of them might know, like there is I mean, and there's a discernment and there's a trust, right? Like, they might get that excited about eating a whole bucket of candy, but okay, I'm not going to let them do that. But there's a trust that sometimes if it seems like it could be good for them, but it's like, that doesn't make sense to me, but I can see that you're super excited about this. Okay, let's go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see that too, like, and I can see how easy it can be to put our own bias on things too, right? Like, she plays soccer, and I coach the team, and I really want her to like it because I'm involved, and it's a great sport, and it's team, and it's outside, and she started out really liking it, but now she's kind of like, she doesn't play it at home, she doesn't kick the ball around. She's still at least as excited to go. I can see when things start to drop off, when they stop being excited to go. But she is excited. Her friends are there. But then she's got like gymnastics or like this acro dance that she does that she is super excited about. She wanted a mat. We bought her a mat. She's going at home. She's doing her cartwheels and her practicing her back bend. She wants to do it every day. So I'm like, okay, I can see here that I didn't do gymnastics. I'm not personally all that excited about it, but I can see she is. So I could see how easily I could bias things here if I tried to get more excited about soccer for her for my own reasons versus acro gymnastics here, which I can clearly see she's much more excited about.
Yeah, and you had brought up earlier, right before we went on air, on this subject, the stuff with your dad, that when it came to like your trip, that you were kind of looking at it through the lenses of the four love language, or the five love languages, sorry, and that it was something that like tell me about that, what you were thinking with that, because I think with a lot with our kids, let's say, like, for people who, I guess, people who aren't fully aware, so the five love languages, like, we all understand and give love differently. So there's acts of service, gifts, quality time, um,
Words of affirmation.
words of affirmation, and physical touch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember a story. My brother, years ago, he told me the story about him and his wife. And his wife was in their kitchen cooking dinner one night, and he comes up behind her and gives her like a big hug from behind and like kisses her neck. And he thought he was being all lovey dovey and like all cute. And she turned around and was like super upset with him, like, "I'm trying to cook dinner here. What are you doing?" And then that created this big fight. And it wasn't until like 2 hours into the fight that they realized, like, oh, they were just trying to speak. They were speaking each other's love languages. Like, her love language is acts of service, and so
right.
she was trying to show her love to him by cooking him this beautiful dinner. His love language is physical touch and words of affirmation. So he was trying to show her his, like, he was trying to show her love through his love language, but her love language is different. Like, she's an acts of service type of person, and he's a physical touch type of person. So they were each trying to fulfill each other's needs and show each other love, but not in the way that the other receives it. It's the way that they receive it. And it created this giant conflict. But then as soon as they figured that out, like, oh my God, we were just doing, like, this is so silly. And now they know. And so they know more about that. Yeah. So it's not necessarily how we receive love and how we take love is not necessarily how someone else does it. And so we should be more attuned to the needs and the desires of the ones that we are trying to love. And so when it comes to our kids, the same thing. Like, if they're like really into something, they may want to, do it with us, that they want to have quality time with us. But we think like, oh, well, we're going to buy them all the things and we're going to, do all these things for them. And that may not be it. And so I think getting attuned to our kids' love languages, trying to figure that out, is the same with our spouse, the same with us. Like, it's so key to be able to do that. And so back to your dad's trip there. So you were talking about his like acts of service with him.
Yeah, right. Love language. Yeah. I wonder, well, we could talk about this. This is probably a whole show. Um, well, and I also think, yeah, it's kind of like there's so many times in a relationship where in my marriage too, where I'm like, man, this is like a bad sitcom. Like if because someone else on the outside who knows about this stuff could be watching that couple in the kitchen and be like, oh, you guys, like can see
Yeah.
the whole thing playing out. But when you're in it, you're just like, what? Why don't you want to hug? Like, but yeah, just realizing, I mean, that's whole, we talk about it a lot, right? That's the journey of self-awareness and personal growth, to know yourself better, to know, oh, I'm the one who needs a hug here.
Mm.
My wife doesn't want one right now. She's obviously busy. How do I deal with this, right? Like, okay, maybe I don't need one right now. I can deal with that, or I could ask for it. You know what I mean? There's a whole different way that situation can go once you have that self-awareness that like, oh, this is what I need. This isn't, I'm not trying to impose my needs on somebody else here.
Yeah.
But yeah, with our dad, I only thought about this afterwards when we were talking about, what we would talk about today is like, yeah, I think this is speaking his love language. This is quality time. Because that was a big thing for him growing up. With us, like he came to every, like I have memories of my parents at like every event. I don't remember them not on the sidelines. If it was a hockey game or a soccer game, in the rain or
Mm.
whatever, like my parents were always there. So I think quality time, seems to be maybe a big thing for them that they gave to me, and now it's a big thing for me. And but yeah, like my dad, it's not words of affirmation, I don't think, because he definitely, didn't give me a lot of those growing up. And so and I don't think it's physical touch. Like he's a little still awkward with me if I try and give him a hug. So I don't think me giving him a hug and say I love you is going to resonate with him the same way it does for me. Like I do like that. So that's fine. I don't need to make one thing right or wrong here.
Yeah.
But quality time, an act of service. I think that he really liked that we thought about this and we organized it and we took him down there and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's super helpful in any relationship to just, whatever you want to call it. And there is that great book, The Five Love Languages, to really know yourself and then also start to think about once you know yourself, now you can better externalize that and go, okay, well, what's in any relationship what could be their love language? What can I do that would feel good to them? Not again impose. I guess it's the same thing we were talking about with kids' activities. It's not trying to impose my needs or whatever on top of them.
Yeah. We had an interesting experience in our office yesterday in our chiropractic practice. My partner, business partner, Chris, he had a new client come in, and we are actually our team member, Chi was homesick, and so we were just manning the fort by ourselves. And his last client was a new client who I don't exactly know where he's from. I think he's like an Eastern European looking guy. He comes in, and not only does he not speak much or he doesn't speak any English, but he's deaf. And he comes in alone, and he's 45 minutes late for his appointment. So we can't take him. It's at the end of the day. And it was comical and cool to see Chris and him try to interact. So what happened is he's writing in his phone in whatever language, and it's translating, and he's turning it to Chris. And then Chris is then writing on the phone, and then it's translating, and then he turns it back to him. And then after a while, he figured out like, oh, Chris can just actually talk into the phone. So he's talking into the phone in English. It then transcribes it and changes it into whatever language this guy was speaking in the written language, and then the guy was reading it. It was fascinating. I'm like, oh wow, like it's we're able to communicate with each other if we're able to translate into our own, like the language that we speak. And it maybe we think it's so simple because, well, we're all speaking English. I feel the way that I feel, so you must be the same. And
Right.
it's not until something so like such a stark difference and such a departure from our normal interactions that it's like, oh yeah, like this this is not necessarily normal for everybody. Like what seems normal for us is not at all normal for somebody else. And it's just like, when you talk about the five love languages, it's literally as if for many people, as if you're speaking different languages, like literally a spoken language. It's I'm trying to speak to you in English and you're trying to speak to me in Italian. And it's like, what is happening here? Like, and you may, and I know, let's say I know French. So French is my first language, English second language. I learned a bit of Spanish in high school, un poquito español. And so, but the French language and Spanish are relatively similar. Like there's a lot of similarities. So I can look at Spanish and especially when I read it or when I hear it, I can catch something like, oh, I think that means this. And so very similar to like our love languages, like we may recognize we know our own language. We may kind of recognize some of the others, but we're so steeped into our own way of being in our own language that it seems foreign that someone else would have another one. And it's like, but now all of a sudden when we're trying to put these two people together, like it really is like having to translate. Like, so we need to translate for ourselves how the other person really is gonna accept, and not just accept, but understand the what we're saying or how we're acting, like our language to them. And same thing for them. Like for us, it's like we have to potentially, when it comes with other people, like they may be trying to show us something that we just have to translate. Like when we look at the intention. And I think there's a lot of times that I will get effed up in this, and I'll get angry or I'll get frustrated or feel unloved, not because the person is not showing me love, but because I'm not accepting it as such. And I have to recognize that not everybody, not a lot of people know about the five love languages. I mean, there's a lot of people now, way more than before, but it's still a very foreign concept for a lot of people. And so we have to give people, some grace. Let's say like the thing with you were saying with your dad, like he doesn't necessarily, physical touch and words of affirmation, not necessarily a thing. And that's I think a very, not just cultural, but also generational as well. It was just very uneasy for them to do stuff like that. And, we can be aware of that. We can be sensitive to that and, take that for what it is.
Yeah. It would be amazing if there were amazing. And also, I'm joking, but like your example with the Google Translator app there, it would be good sometimes if there was something like that for the love languages, or like in a relationship with someone, like, okay, I feel like I'm speaking Japanese right now. You're not hearing what I'm saying. What we need some sort of translation device in here, right? Like that situation in the kitchen there. If the guy could just have it back, be like, no, don't give her a hug right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Wipe the counter or whatever. I don't know. Do an act of service. Like if there was some.
That would be a great use for AI. Have some little chip or some little speaker thing in our ear. Dude, don't do that. Don't do that.
Oh, a little coach.
Do not approach her.
Well, I just think, it's this bad sitcom of like we're speaking Japanese sometimes, and the other person doesn't that's just that. You're right. That story of in your practice yesterday is just such a great example of that in relationships, for sure. Like with my dad or with my wife or with my kids. Like if I'm not paying attention. Like if you're totally obtuse and oblivious to this, you're going to be speaking English to that guy and be like, why don't you understand what I'm saying? Like everyone speaks English. Come on, what's going on? But the guy's deaf and he doesn't speak English. Like it's just such a great analogy though of any relationship. If you're not aware, right? If you're not self-aware and understanding and tuned in to your own needs first, and then, just as importantly, what the other person's experiencing, what they need, then you're just going to be sitting there blabbing on in English, and the other person's like, I don't get you, man. Like I totally don't understand what's going on here. But with my dad, I feel like we did a good job here of tuning into his love language without putting it into a program. Like we just from a place of love, we were able to, I think, figure out what he would really like.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any? So now that you're back, then you reflect on it. Like, was there anything? I don't know. Like, what did you take away from from the trip for you?
Well, a few things. One, it was just great. You know, we shared a hotel room because man, Vegas is expensive. Uh, I think I had. I must be getting old, right? Where you complain about the cost of things and the smell. Man, I'm that's totally an old guy complaining about smoking in the casino and the price of things. Look, it was a great. I mean, I know I'm not complaining. It was a great trip. I appreciate that we have this opportunity of the time, and we can afford to go to take them down there. And I mean, we saw a couple shows, right? Being able to see that Sphere, we saw a Cirque show. You know, Michael Jackson. That blew me away. Yeah, I am very appreciative of all that, and you know, sometimes it's also fun to pick up on like $10 for a coffee, like a drip coffee. Are you kidding me? Like that's ridiculous. Like, I mean, I know what it costs to make I got my coffee here. Like, it doesn't cost me 10. It's not, anyways. I think that was probably the most expensive drip coffee I've had and it was in Vegas. But anyways, taking what I took away, just I think just the quality time. Like we had some really good jams, the three of us. And again, I think that means a lot to him. I'll remember it. I mean, I remember things about the last trip for sure, you know, and for me, emotion creates memory for, you know, that's something I believe. So, you know,
Hmm.
I there must have been some good emotions the last time. I remember it well. I definitely think he really enjoyed it. He even watched. I posted some stuff on Instagram. He's like, "Oh yeah, I saw that," and I was like, "What? You're on Instagram, Dad?" But he had somehow. I think my mom showed him. But you know, I think it meant a lot to him, which is ultimately the point here. And it was just some really good time with him and my brother. And then I was also thinking about like, oh, you know, maybe our mom would like. Actually, my brother brought this point up. Like maybe our mom would like something like this. She's even more humble. She doesn't want like a big deal. She doesn't want to probably go to Vegas. You know, that's too much for her. But we got to think about, well, yeah, what would she really like for a trip like that? So we thought about that, and then also think about my own kids. Like, you know, not that they need to do this for me, but it would be great if we did have a tradition later on that when I'm not spending as much time with them, right? When they've moved out and stuff, if we did have some kind of tradition like that, where we did get to spend some time together. So yeah, it
Hmm.
was all around great. Yeah, some good reflection and yeah, some quality time, which I think is important for him and my brother and I.
Yeah. But I think you bring up a really great point about the idea of tradition. And it reminded me, I'm not sure how this reminded me of that, but I was reminded of an interview with Jerry Seinfeld. And he was talking about quality time with his kids. And he was talking about how he said quality. He's like quality time. Like he's like, I'm not looking for more quality time with my kids. He's like the most memorable times with my kids are not the moments where I put in all the effort. We put all this effort. We have this big event. We go for dinner. Or we do this thing. He's like the times that I remember, the times I love the most with my kids, and that they talk about and that they remember are like just the times at midnight where we're sitting around in the kitchen eating a bowl of cereal together, or it's the conversation that we had on the way to school, or it's those like the little kind of what we can a lot of times just consider throwaway moments. It's not all these like the big extravagant things that we create in our minds or that we organize, but just like these little things that we have, and there are these like little traditions that we have, like we have here. Not, it doesn't happen. It's every 2 or 3 weeks, maybe every 3 or 4 weeks. All on a weekend morning, I'll make crepes for the kids. For those who don't know, those are like little flat French pancakes, and it's so fun. And every time we do it, they get their little aprons on. They help me pour the things now because they're older and now they can do stuff. And like it's this little tradition that we have that Papa makes crepes on the weekend sometimes. And we have these. I can't think of anything else right now, but I know that we have some other things. It's just little things that we get into the routine. We can see them as routine, and then we could also see them like as ritual. And then when we have these rituals on a consistent basis, whether consistency is every day or that's once a year, like whatever it is, that becomes these like traditions. And we think of in like culturally, like tradition is so important. We have people generations ago have come to Canada, like from all, or Canadians go to wherever, but we have these little traditions that we carry forward that just have some sort, they have a special meaning for us. And I think those are really great. Like, so when we create these little traditions with our kids, when we're able to create them now with our parents, I think that's really special to do. So I'm
Hmm.
glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I hope, yeah, I hope this turns into a tradition here. We got, maybe we'll be able to do it again at 100. Maybe with, advancements in technology, 110. I mean, it's great to see he's out walking us down there. He's excited to be down there. Like he's ahead of us. And I'm like, man, we got to pick it up here. So he's kept himself in good shape. And I think just I was also thinking as you were talking there, just as part of this experience, I think it's great just to be in the company of someone you do respect, and just get to see their mannerisms too in different environments, because we are always picking up stuff, right? And we're always learning, and just to see him, how he acts in a place like Vegas and in the casino and with other people and in the restaurant. And yeah, anyways, and just yeah, he's a really humble guy, and he's thinking about us. He's like, "Oh, you guys should go to the pool. You guys should go get some sun." And we're like, "But Dad, what do you want to do? We're here for you." I think he wanted. I don't. I think that was his polite way of saying, "I want to go. I want to go pull on some slots a little bit. Why don't you guys? Why don't you guys take off?"
Right.
But he likes he doesn't like all the flashy new ones. I mean, man, the new slot machines are ridiculous, right? They're video games with tons of lights and sounds. Well, he doesn't like those. He's hunting through the casino for like the old school ones that you physically have something to pull, and it's all mechanical, and doesn't like all the fancy stuff.
Yeah, right. Is there is there anything you learned? Like, what did you learn on the trip? Is there anything that surprised you?
Um, Thing that surprised me. Um, well, other than how expensive Vegas is, um,
You
I
realize
don't
how
know.
curmudgeon you are.
Yeah, how much I like things back up here in Vancouver, Canada. Yeah, I don't know about surprised. Yeah, I just a good experience all around. Yeah, I guess just yeah, maybe not surprised, just I just appreciate, that just what the three of us can talk about. I mean, we don't get super deep. We're not talking about necessarily the same things that I do in our men's groups and some of these circles, but we can talk about kids. We can and ask our dad, like, what was it like? How did you handle this, dad, with us? And so we
Mm,
can talk about, and we can talk about business now. We're doing some projects. Actually, the three of us are kind of working on similar stuff, so we can ask each other some advice on some of these projects, and so yeah, it's in relationships with our wives and friends, and just talking. Hear my dad's stories about some of his friends and how they're doing. So anyway, yeah, it's not surprising, but it's great. I really just appreciate that we can have these conversations on many topics, um, and still disagree, but not have it blow up into anything. But we can agree to disagree. We can have some really constructive chats. Yeah, I really appreciate that.
hmm. And is that something that you had to cultivate over time, or has that always been just the dynamics you guys had together?
Um, I think I think for me, it's something I've had to cultivate over time. Like, I don't know. I think, well, either this is my parents' wording, or maybe just was how I was when I was younger. Like, it wasn't, they would say I wasn't naturally curious about, other people. Maybe I was lost in my own world a bit. I don't know. But,
Mm,
or I know when I was younger, I would feel kind of insecure about asking people questions about themselves, because maybe I felt uncomfortable when people asked me questions. So I wouldn't do it a lot. And don't think it wasn't to be rude, and it wasn't that I wasn't curious. It was just like I felt like it was kind of rude to kind of poke and ask questions and stuff like that. But at
Mm.
least now my brother's really good at this too. Now I'm better at asking questions and being more curious and wanting to have more conversations and getting some more insights and being able to um yeah, anyway, so that's definitely been something I feel like I've consciously wanted to and needed to cultivate over time.
Hmm. What is something that now as a dad, is there anything that comes to mind that you can think back and like, oh, that like you can think back as on your dad parenting you, something that you have consciously just brought forward into like I'm going to parent my kids like this. Like I want to bring this forward. I love this about my dad. I love this about how he did this with me. I want to do this with for my kids. Like, is there anything that comes to mind for that?
A few things like respect, kindness, respect. Like
Mm-hmm.
like mostly, and he's still this way today. Like he's just a very, um, yeah, he treats like I can count on one hand the times he said something negative about somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So he's just very naturally positive guy, and very respectful in his dealings and his interaction with other people.
Yeah.
So that that's a big one for sure. And then the quality time piece in terms of just my memories of how and even for that generation, how involved he was with things in my life. At least he was there. What I remember is with the sport. I mean, there are times when he wasn't there, which I've worked on in terms of when I could have needed a little more support,
Mm-hmm.
emotionally. We can go into that in a whole other conversation, but physically, there for me. He managed some of my sports teams, like my hockey team, and again, both my parents being there for me at the rink and stuff like that meant a lot to me now. So
Mm-hmm.
that's something I've carried forward for sure with my kids, and the things that he didn't give that I needed back then that he didn't know how. I mean, again, generational, how he was raised, all that kind of stuff. That's also been some of those gaps have also been really good growth and learning for me in terms of what I could have needed that. Now I'll make sure to give that to my kids.
Right. It seems so like every generation seems to have that. Like, can you see, let's say not necessarily for you, because we don't necessarily see it for ourselves, but like, what do you think is a big blind spot for like this generation of dads, this generation of parent, well, more specifically just dads, not never mind parent, but dads.
Hmm. Blind spotting. Um, Potentially, I think it's presence, like real presence, because I think it's so easy. I don't know. Maybe it's my lens, but I just see so often how many times parents are on their phone at out at a restaurant, at the playground, pickups at school. They're on their phone and the kids are playing. And I just think that I don't know the message that sends around that there's something more important on here that I need to be doing right now versus paying attention to what might be going on in the playground or even being on the playground with my kids and playing with them. So just, and I don't know what that looks like in the home, but just being on that and not connecting with them, showing them your presence. Yeah, that's the one that comes up for me that I think, could be a problem or could be a blind spot.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, and yeah, I think that's definitely true. Like, we say we may have had. I had a dad who was around a lot. He also did work a lot, but he also was there quite a bit. But I remember like just like wanting his presence, like wanting him to be there. And interestingly, now we have options and we have opportunities that as dads, we are there more often. Like we maybe
Hmm.
plan like I'm going to be at all the things. I'm going to be at all the events. I'm going to be there for my kids. I'm going to be home for dinner. I'm going to take the kids to the park every day. And so we think that just being there physically
Hmm.
is that, but there's like you're right. There's like the next step is like actually being present, like fully, like all, like physically, mentally, emotionally there, not just physically, because we can physically be somewhere, but be so like yeah, I can remember a few, a handful of times where I like my daughters are literally like tugging on my shirt, and I'm just like out in space thinking about something, stressed about something. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm here physically, but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
am not present. I am not here at all. And yeah, that is. I think that's gonna be really key, especially now that we have so many distractions.
yeah.
And yeah, we don't have to necessarily even work through things together. Like we can look things up. Like now, it's. I think it's a fun habit, and also a. I can see where this could go off the rails. But my daughter will ask me something, and I'll say, "Oh, I don't know," and she'll be like, "Just ask Siri." Like,
Right.
oh. They just want to like
Outsource
look
our
something up
thinking.
right away. Yeah, so we kind of outsource all this stuff. And I think there's some magic to that because all of a sudden we can learn things like, oh, like we're looking at pictures about we're learning about the mushrooms that are in our front yard, which is cool. But also, yeah, that could lead us astray big time.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a slippery slope there. Yeah, on one hand it was well, it was I mean, again, we can have a whole show on AI. It was fun. My brother started showing my dad about how to use ChatGPT. I mean, he's seen it before and I think he's poked around with it, but it was fun. We flipped on the voice feature, and so he was able to give well he for at least for in this context he gave us some of the prompts because he didn't quite get how to interact with it directly, but so we were there having a chat with ChatGPT about some accounting questions, and so it was good for him to be able to talk through some accounting logistics around some dividend and what's the tax implication here in Canada, and there's
Mm.
like dividend credit that the government gives, but then there's a tax implication depending anyway. So there's a great, that was a great use case with him in terms of because he was an accountant, and for him to be able to get some help with some of this. Although it was more just validating what he already knew, but it was good for him to get some confirmation, I guess, from
Hmm.
from an accounting. We asked ChatGPT to be an accounting expert, but man, well, again, it lot. Here's another rant. The part that drives me nuts because when we practice the four agreements in terms of the impeccability of our word, I
Hmm.
would like them to code that into the learning model of AI, that the AI can't lie. That would be the biggest thing for me because the fact that it can just make shit up and pass it off as the truth drives me nuts. Because
Right,
I
and
was
it's
I was
convincing.
well, yeah, because it's just like most of the time it's right. So why would I question it? But like I was having a conversation with, this to me is a really good use case. I'm working on a proposal, and so I went on. It was a really nice day yesterday, and I wanted to go for a run. So I'm using the advanced chat feature, and there I am on a run. I don't like running with earbuds, and my glasses are broke. I have to send them back. So normally I would use those, but for now I was just had it on speakerphone, and I'm running, chatting with ChatGPT and going back and forth for an hour on how to put this proposal together. Budget. What does it think about some of these ideas? Okay, who should be on the team? What does the
Mm.
schedule look like? Can you go and research this for me? And after an hour, I'm probably about 75% of the way there.
It's
So for
amazing.
me, that was a great use case of this technology just to further my own thinking because I'm able to go back and forth with it and get some things. But then it just flat out lied. It's a proposal for this Japanese Canadian project I'm working on, and I got onto it about some who are some of the famous Japanese Canadians that maybe could be involved or might be interested in this project, and it starts raffling off all these names, and it raffles off Tegan and Sarah, who my dad used to actually work with. They were clients of his, he did their taxes and stuff. And it's like, oh yeah, they don't. It was super convincing because it's like, oh, they don't usually make it very public, but they have Japanese Canadian ancestry. And I was like, really? How come my dad never brought this up? And so it was very convincing. It had this whole reason why they were. And I brought up to my dad at dinner last night. He's like, no, I've met their parents. I would know this if they were. And so, anyways, I go back to it today. It's like, oh yeah, you were right to question that. Yeah, you're right. They don't have it. And I was just like, I could have put that in the proposal and ran with it, but yeah, it needs like a fact checking AI to check the AI. That's the part. Anyways, but I wish they would put the four agreements into AI. Can't can't stand lying.
I think we're gonna have to maybe by maybe by 2025 we'll change the name to the podcast. Grumpy old dads.
Just like, yeah, right. It's funny about when you're a kid and you're just like, ah, these the parent. You're just hearing those grumpy the guys in the coffee shop. Like, oh man, am I becoming that guy? I hope not.
Yeah. One thing that I think about, just go back to what we were talking um, about your trip with your dad. Like, I think when I heard that you guys went and I saw some of the pictures, it really touched my heart. It was like, oh, that's so cool. And I was telling you earlier too that my friend Sush took his dad to Italy for a week or a week and a half or something like that, and they had just a great bond, and it's like allowed him to really reframe the relationship that he had and really saw his dad in a different light. And I think a lot of us, especially when we get into being a dad, like we start to look back and we start to have these thoughts about like, oh, like how was my dad as a dad, and like how am I going to be a dad, and like I don't want to do this and I do want to do this. And then we think about like especially if we have our parents in our lives, which I do, and I'm not necessarily not as fortunate. Like my parents are not here. Like they're in Kelowna, and I don't see them that much. And while I think that they're gonna live a lot longer, like they're still pretty young, as like for me, anyways. But I remember hearing from one mentor of mine, Jesse Itzler. He was talking about our perception of time. Is that like you think he says like, okay, well, let's say like your parents are 80. Like, let's say like they're going to live to 90. Let's say like if it was my parents, like I see them 2-3 times a year in person, and we talk a lot, but I only see them like 2 or 3 times. And he's like, yeah. So you think that you've got 10 years left with your parents. And that seems like a long time. That's, 3,650 days. Like that's a long ass time. He's like, but no, he's like, you've got like 30 times, 20 times. And I remember when I first heard him say that, I'm like, whoa, like that reframing of time
Right.
means that like, oh, like that's a lot less than I think. And so the times that I do have, I really can put a lot more effort and intention into being more present, into really getting more out of it, giving more to them, and like allowing them to to feel the love that I have for them, and to know, and create those, to have those traditions, to create those memories, and to serve them and to serve myself and my family in a way that is more meaningful, because it's way more finite than we think.
Mm-hmm.
We just had I guess a acquaintance, kind of friend of ours that passed away, who's very young, not too long ago, Annie. And it's like, we're younger, and even and a lot of people look at us and be like, yeah, we're older and curmudgeon already. But no, like we're still, you and I, like we're still pretty young. And yet it's so finite. Like it can go at any time. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, it's like we need to really just savor the opportunities that we have, take the opportunities that we have to create those memories, to create those traditions, to just be intentional. And, with our kids, with our parents, with everybody. And yeah, I think that's so cool. And so, yeah, so I honor you for doing that, for you and your brother, for doing that for your dad. I think that's just amazing. And yeah, so well done.
Oh yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I do. You're right. I think this has also been part of maybe the work in the last 10 years, or even just certainly, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, certainly I know it's been more of an intention since having our first kid. It's just how making the most of this time that we do have together. Whether it's with our kids, because it is a finite time that like you're saying, right? Like how many summers are we actually going to be able to get with our kids? It's not that many before they're gone. How many
Mm-hmm.
times am I going to get to do something like this with my dad? Like really, not having that mindset, oh, we have lots of time, we can worry about that later. But like, no, like making the most of the time that we have and doing some stuff that's, whatever, uncomfortable, expensive, out of our, just sometimes we got to do that. And you know, I was just thinking also as you were saying that, like, I guess part of the work as well has been, you know, as you were asking me about, well, what did you take away from this and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. I think I'm reflecting back on a lot of the work I've done, you know, even in relation to my dad, like figuring more about myself, asking my dad some questions over the past 10 years, like, oh, that's why I felt this way, because that's how he, you know, anyways, getting clear on my values, getting clear on, you know, I'm not, I know there was a big epiphany for me where I'm like, oh, I, I don't need to be, I don't need to judge myself as a good guy based on my achievements. Like that was
Mm,
some decision I made as a kid around, oh, I need to do good, you know, to get my dad's affection or whatever. That was some decision I made early on. And I kind of lived out this like achievement model of I got to get good grades and I got to get a good job and I got to do all those things because that's what my parents want. That was a big thing I realized in the past 10 years, like, oh no, you know, I'm a good guy, you're a good guy just because of who we are, because we're alive. It doesn't, I don't need to have some sort of external validation for that. Anyway, so I've been doing that work iteratively over the past 10 years, so that now I can show up and I don't have any expectations about this trip. I don't have any expectations of
mm,
my dad. Like I get to just show up and be like, how do you want this to go? Where do you want to go for dinner? What do you want? You know, like I don't need anything from it, right? I'm here just to serve in, you know, be in his company and yeah, have some fun. You know, that was, you know, going to Top Golf. That was super fun. You know, three competitive, you know, we're a little bit competitive and but we're still having fun. We're in this great place. And that, yeah, that was fun. But yeah, just back to what you're saying, I think it's really important to take some time to think about what would be really what would be a really great thing to do here, whether it's with our wives or with our kids or with our parents, and cherish that time that we've got.
yeah, man. Well done. Cool.
Yeah, I know you said you wanted to end a little bit early. You got some special
Well,
things
it's my
going on
wife's
there.
birthday, so she likely won't listen to this. But Sarah, if you're listening, if you're watching,
Shout
if you
out.
ever watch, happy birthday! I love you. I love you tons. We want to celebrate you
Cool, man.
today. So yeah, so one of my kids got up super early this morning, and well, as you were answering one of the questions, my other daughter came into the room, and she's like, "Oh, Olivia fell asleep on the couch."
She got up so
she,
early that she's already falling back
she,
to sleep.
yeah, exactly. So like, all right. So yeah, so we're gonna go wrangle all the kids. We got my wife some flowers, so we're gonna go put a bunch of flowers in a vase. We're gonna put some in like a little bouquet so that the kids can present them to her.
Nice.
So yeah, it's fun. We're gonna
Cool.
create a little tradition.
Right on. All right, cool. Enjoy. Say happy birthday to me. To her
All
for
right,
me.
man. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, bro.
All right.